Namaste everyone. Welcome to our next episode of In Conversation with the Vaidya. Very excited to welcome Vd Manjiri today. Namaste.
Namaste.
And welcome to our community. We are super excited for this conversation today. And maybe we can just start with typically what we try to do with these sessions is it's very conversational. I ask you a few questions and we try to keep it very practical around Ayurveda, around your practice, around learning Ayurveda. And we also take audience questions as we go along. So Michelle will be helping me a little bit with people will post their questions in the chat, or maybe they'll raise their hand and want to actually speak and share their question. So we try to coordinate that as we go along. But let's get started. Unless you would like to say something, Dr. Manjiri, before
No,
we
I'm
start.
good. Let's get started. I'm excited. So yeah, let's get started.
All right. Okay. So, I'm so fascinated to see, to see your website and to learn about your practice, because I feel like, you really have your own unique flavor of Ayurveda, and you're thinking about Ayurveda and how to integrate it in today's world and for yogis today. So I'd love to maybe just start with that. So, tell us a little bit about your practice, right? Where are you based? How do you think about your practice? Do you have certain areas of expertise or specialty? Let's start there.
So I'll start about how I started the journey, right? So the Canada thing was I'm based in Sarnia, Ontario, which is a smaller city, I would say. We are about 100K population, so it's not a big city. And I'm on the US border town. So like it takes me 10 minutes to get into the US from, Canada.
Yeah.
And I am one of the few immigrants. And I got married and I moved to Canada. I was doing my MD. I had planned my PhD. I had applied for it. I'd gotten accepted. I fell in love, decided to move. So everything was like unplanned, like the marriage, the move to Canada. And then I land in Sarnia, which is a smaller town. And this is what we call the petrochemical valley of Canada, So again, from a basic understanding, it's a very meat and potatoes town. When I came here 10, 11 years ago, there wasn't much exposure even to Indian culture. And what I started experiencing was a lot of xenophobia as well. Like people were not sure when you talk about Ayurveda, they didn't know what exactly it was, or some of them thought that even yoga kind of conflicted with their belief system,
Oh, wow.
right? So yeah, so it was a big challenge starting out. And that is why I wanted to do something so I could speak in their language. And I think more than telling people about my knowledge, what I know, it's important for me to help them with their health, right? So my practice, my approach is always patient centric. Some people come to me via, because they want nutrition. Some people come because they are referred by somebody who's tried Ayurveda. They can't pronounce Ayurveda. They can't pronounce my name. They know somebody has had results. So that's how they come to me. And
Right.
then I give them Ayurvedic information in small doses.
Right.
So this is like my philosophy is, it's more about healing the person. It's more about helping them where they are.
Right.
And it's not about me or like showcasing me. I have ample opportunities to kind of showcase myself, but when it comes to a client, how best can you help them? And even as an immigrant, so I don't know if, there are challenges, like even if you're a Vaidya, 100%, because you're navigating a completely different life here, as an immigrant, you're rooted in a certain culture, you're rooted with your own ideas. For me, I was like, okay, I'm going to do my PhD. I'm going to get into research. So that was my planning, which
Oh,
kind of
wow.
didn't
Okay.
really, oh yeah, I always wanted to get into research. So that was my thing at the time. And I loved practicing as well. So my MD is Rog Nidan Vikruti Vignan. So diagnostics is kind of, I have a strong hold on it. But that did not happen. And one interesting incident that happened earlier on in my journey is I started writing a blog. I didn't write a lot of it. But when I started a blog, I sent it to a few of my Ayurvedic colleagues who
Yeah.
absolutely loved the information. They're like, oh my God, it's amazing. And then I sent it out to one or two of my friends who were non-Ayurvedics.
Okay.
And it was a food related blog. I would put some recipes. I would write it from an dosha perspective, vata pitta kapha. And one of my friends, she was like the one question, like she actually was like, what the hell, is that? Was her question, because she had no idea what Ayurveda was, what vata pitta kapha was. And I was writing it from a point, from my perspective, not from what somebody wants to learn perspective. So there I was actively trying to share my knowledge. Okay, I know this, I think this can help. But then I started realizing that I have to take a few steps back and really simplify things, So the more you help people understand,
Yeah.
the more you cater, to
Right.
what it is that they require, I think that's how you can create that change.
I think I hear this theme, from a lot of experienced Vedyas, that you really have to start where the rogi is as opposed
Yeah,
to where you are, right?
yeah, yeah.
And really go from there. Take them on the journey in a pace and in a style that works for them.
Yeah. And see, because we deal with a lot of different, not just locations, but also people having different experiences, In
Yeah.
your practice, you will come across lots of people, and some people don't have a reference point or a template. Like an
Yeah.
example, a benefit to being born in India is, you know the difference between hot and cold actively. When you have cold, you're not going to eat an ice cream because your mom had told you that. Your
Yeah.
grandmother would give you like a kadha, which is like a hot kashayam,
Mhm.
and so you have that reference point because you've done that,
Yeah.
even though it was not active, it was something passively done, but
Yeah.
that becomes a part of you. Here the start point is telling them the difference between the hot and cold and avoiding ice creams. If you're catching a cold, it will create that coldness, dampness,
Yeah.
and it is not their fault that they don't know it. Sometimes it's easier for us to understand that, oh, this is something basic, you should know about it. But I think, some people don't have the reference point, so really seeing where they are,
Got
you
it.
know
Got it.
yeah,
So you're based in Canada, you said, and you're
yeah.
at this, border town. So do you mostly see people locally, or are you also seeing rogis online from
Yeah.
Canada or from other countries?
So I see people virtually a lot. I see people locally as well. So I have a clinic. We are an integrated clinic. So we have a naturopath, massage therapist, osteopath,
Okay.
myself, like working in the same clinic. It's individual businesses, but we operate under the name of the clinic together.
Okay.
And then virtually, I have been seeing clients from like New Zealand, US, UK, Greece, and all. And it's been happening for a long time, even pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's both ways.
Got it. And then, like I was looking at your website, and you also mentioned you have a strong hold on diagnostics. So one of the sections on your website actually talks about like testing, right?
Yeah,
And there are several options that you provide for
yeah,
testing. So I'd
yeah.
love to learn a bit more about that.
So for me, that's the fun part, because um, here, like when it comes to hormones, when it comes to even a simple thing would be weight loss, right? Weight loss is something everybody strives for, and it's very hard to attain for most people. And if you look at the new fad diets, people, an example is a keto diet, right? So I had a client who came to me, a 23-year-old, and she had lost 20 pounds, in a few months. And then she was feeling exhausted, tired, extremely weak, right? So unless I track what her muscle mass is, what her body fat is, what the hydration status is, I wouldn't know if it's the water loss, fat loss, muscle loss, right? So that's body composition analysis. That's the one thing I offer. So tracking is usually for understanding of the clients. It keeps them motivated. It keeps them better compliant. And then when
Right.
you can see those objective parameters, they feel good about it. Like
Right.
symptomatically, sometimes it's hard for people to tell you how much benefit they're seeing,
Yeah. Like what's the progress they have made to really get an understanding of that?
Yeah, and sometimes they're like, oh, I don't think, it's very different. So I had another client with weight loss. She was like, every time she would come to me, she would cry because she was not at her optimal weight.
Mm.
And then we had a talk with another practitioner. She was seeing another like practitioner from the same clinic, osteopath. And the osteopath was like, oh, your body is different. You've lost weight, you're less stiff. And she's like, oh, I've lost this much weight. It is fantastic. I've never lost weight before I started working with Dr. Manjiri. And I'm like, you're telling me something completely different.
Right.
So you're always complaining when you come to me, but when it comes to the other person, you can see all those benefits, right? But because I could track the numbers, I could show her that, okay, you're getting
Got it.
frustrated for no reason. So there are options, you can use to help with your practice. And the body composition machine, I use it. I had a similar one when I was doing my MD. So
Mm.
from the same company, I used to use it for my MD. So it kind of just was an extension.
Got it.
Salivary hormonal test is something else that I test for, whether it's cortisol, whether it's estrogen. Again, when it comes to legalities, you have to find that out from your state.
Yeah.
But if you're okay with it, or if you send it to the clients and they can get it done,
Oh.
I think it's an additional service you can provide.
So, for example, with clients in US that you may have, how do you get these tests done for them?
I don't always get the test done for them. I'll have to research, or sometimes I see, a lot of the times they come to me with prior testing, especially from US, because there are a lot more functional doctors in the US than in Canada, right? So some of them have already been to the functional practitioner. If not, I sometimes look up certain, labs that would send it directly to the clients. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay. And typically, like which, I guess, what are, usually when yogis are coming to you, what would you say are like the most common 2 to 3 conditions that they're coming to you about?
So one of the first things is digestion. Like I have lots of people with, digestive issues, diverticulitis, IBS, Crohn's, colitis. So the whole digestive spectrum. And I think that's also where Ayurveda really helps,
Mm-hmm.
or where Ayurveda can really help, because the Ayurvedic concepts are very different than any other naturopath would tell you, any other nutritional practitioner could ever tell you.
Right.
um, Simple things like adding spices, simple things like not snacking. Everybody else tells them to have 6 meals a day and snack,
Yeah.
throughout the day to stabilize blood sugar. But with Ayurvedic digestives, we have a different approach, right? Certain bitters, certain specific, herbs that we can give for Ayurveda. So digestion is the number one. Weight loss hormones is the second one, I would say.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
yeah. So yeah, thyroid, PCOS, and all those, yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah,
So yeah, in on the hormonal side, it tends to be related to thyroid or
yeah,
PCOS.
yeah.
Okay, got it. And is there an aspect of your own personal journey with health that also sort of, shapes where you have decided to focus in your practice?
A lot. So I started, like, I don't know if you've seen my story on my website. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so for those who are not familiar, I am a kapha dominant, pitta secondary dosha type, or dosh prakriti. And growing up, again, the round face and all are very characteristic to kapha, but I was never obese. As a child, I was fairly chubby, how kids are, but I was short, and I was fed milk and bananas for a few years in an attempt to grow tall. So somebody suggested, my mom would, like, okay, every single morning I would have like a banana milkshake, and I would do this tadasan where I would stretch my body upwards and walk on my toes for, like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. And
Hmm.
then I started experiencing a lot of weight gain. So by the time I went to the age of 16, I was 96 kgs.
Hmm.
Um, Around like 200 plus pounds,
Hmm.
and I tried, like, it messed up my hormones. My cycles were really irregular. I didn't menstruate for 10 months.
Okay.
uh, I tried every endocrinologist, every specialist, every gynecologist out there, nutritionists, dietitians. The more they would put me on diet, the more off I felt.
Hmm.
Nothing seemed to work. And then I was sent to this Ayurvedic doctor. I didn't even know she was an Ayurvedic doctor. I just, I was getting a haircut, and I think somebody suggested that, why don't you go and check this out. And she sat me down. She asked me about the entire health history, my journey right from my childhood, what
Mhm.
was eating, how did things shift for me. And then she talked about, okay, this is not compatible for you. And that's the
Right.
first time I was like, okay, I don't know what this is. I need to get more information. And around the same time, I was like transitioning from grade 12 to choose a career college. And that's when I decided to go for Ayurveda. So she helped me lose all that weight without gaining it back. Uh, she really helped me get connected with my own body. My cycles ever since have been regular without any issues. So that was a big change. And I tried everything, so, and I felt like everything had failed me. So
Right. Right.
finding Ayurveda at the time was such a relief.
Got it. Okay. That's amazing that you found somebody also at that point, and it sort of also shaped then probably, your practice. I mean, even your learning as, connect, because when we go through these personal experiences and then learn something, I feel like the knowledge is so much more deeper, right?
And she also became my mentor. So when I was in college, I used to go to her clinic, and she would teach all the students. And she's very practical as well. She still practices in Mumbai. And I really loved the practical approach that she had. So
Right.
for every question, or she would make us think, it's not about spoon feeding you certain formulas about what should you use in a certain condition, but it's about making you think that what would be like the right approach.
Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. Okay. So I'll just take a quick pause here while we're still talking about your practice and see if people want to share any thoughts, any comments, any questions that we should take more pertaining to your practice. And Michelle can maybe guide us as the questions come in. Um, but yeah, maybe just going back to like, understanding your practice, right? Um, so you mentioned that typically like the few conditions that you're working with are, around digestion and
Yeah.
then also around the hormonal side of
Yeah.
it. So on your website, one of the things you mentioned is like a digestive reset or like a
Yeah.
metabolic reset.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
like what
See,
that is?
yeah. So I see in my in-person clinic, I'll share more aspects of my like practitioner journey that because in Canada or Sarnia for that matter, nobody knew Ayurveda and I needed a professional license at that time, liability license, right? Without the liability insurance rather,
Yeah.
my I was not comfortable practicing, and I was warned by quite a few people about the legalities and the repercussions of not following the legalities. So I knew I wanted to practice, and I couldn't find any other course closer than the holistic nutrition course. So I did a diploma in natural nutrition,
Mm.
and that helped me open up a whole new world of the diets in the Western world, because every other day you'll come up with a new diet. Keto is extremely popular now. There has been Atkins diet, there has been, there are different diets. And the other thing that I found after my natural nutrition courses, there are also a lot of food sensitivities or allergies. So in Ayurveda we talk about the whole concept of satmya or asatmya,
Mm-hmm. Right.
right? And here, because every person that comes to you already has issues with his or her gut, and there are a lot of food sensitivities, there are lots of food allergies, so I ended up doing another course in that. So metabolic reset, digestive rebalance, they're both kind of my signature programs. I use certain specific strategies where I combine Ayurveda with holistic nutrition in the sense to make it simple for them to understand, and they're both about tracking things. So with the metabolic reset, the first reading is I'll track everything, the body fat, muscle mass, weight, all the measurements. And then I'll give them a specific meal plan based on Ayurvedic principles according to their dosha type, which helps them, kind of connect better with their food. And then we have different sessions accordingly. And with digestive rebalance, the first is to eliminate any of the sensitivities that they have.
Mm.
So whether, like we say, Nidan Parivarjan is like the first rule, right, of Chikitsa. So always identifying what's going on with the diet is important.
And does the you also have like allergy testing as one of the things, right? Do you use that when you
Yeah,
people are
so I do what's called applied kinesiology. There are a lot of food testings you can get online as well. So there are some food testings like via blood available, the immunoglobulin testings as well. So you can always, check out again the rules, regulations, make sure you have the liability coverage. But
yeah.
that can be a good map to understand what's going on.
Mm.
And this is the one thing I've seen differently in my practice, or that's my approach, that even though we say that, okay, milk is, really good according to Ayurveda,
Mm-hmm.
it has changed over the few years, the farming practices, how
Yeah.
dairy farming is done, it will change it,
Yeah.
right? So if you can source good quality milk, it is going to have some of the shastrokta qualities that are mentioned in the text, right? If you look at the carton bought milk, it's not going to have those qualities. It's heavy to digest, it can create a lot of inflammation in the body. It
Mm.
can evoke immune responses because of the whey and casein. So really trying to apply yukti, you know
Mm-hmm.
is very important. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. um Typically, and I imagine like the milk, wheat, like are these pretty much the common, set of allergens that people come to you about, or are there other things also?
They are. And see, you have to find exactly what they're reacting to. An example is, if somebody comes to you with psoriasis and you're not sure what they're reacting to, and you ask them to go dairy free, but they might be reacting to gluten.
Mm.
So it's not going to help you. So you have to be able to pinpoint
Okay. Okay.
what they're reacting to. For those who don't have access to testing, I'll tell you a very simple thing that you can do it in your own practices, right? Ask them to keep a food log and a food symptom log,
Mm.
right? So at least a 7 day, if it's a chronic condition, even a 15 days. So when you book the appointment, ask them to write down everything they're eating till their appointment, along with the symptoms, and email it to you. And then if you start noticing any patterns that I've eaten this, or this person has eaten this for lunch,
Mm-hmm.
and they're getting a certain stomach ache, or every single night they're drinking a glass of milk and next morning they wake up, with a post nasal drip, then you can start connecting those dots.
Okay, so that's a combination of diet as well as bodily symptoms that you may be experiencing.
Yeah, you have to focus on the symptoms as well, because that's where they're going to find the relief.
Mm-hmm.
And with diets, you have to work according to what they're eating and start tweaking it, right? Because sometimes if you start changing their diet completely, it may not work. That's one problem I had in my practice, that I every time I would get a client, this was when I was starting out, I wanted to teach them everything that I knew, right? And see, again, practicing in India is very different than practicing in Canada, because as I said, some people don't have a template of understanding
Yeah,
foods at all.
yeah,
So for them, if you try to change their diet, everything about them, they're never going to come and visit you back.
yeah, yeah. That's true.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
very true. Um,
We have a couple questions here.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
One of them is, how do you tie these food allergies and food sensitivities to the dosha?
Okay.
And once you balance them, do they change? And then there's a couple more questions and a comment too after this.
Yeah, for sure. So food allergies are always a result of mandagni. That's the one thing. So you have to always start with assessing the agni, right? Now, when it comes to different reactions, they could be associated with any of the doshas. You will see different variations of doshas in people as well. Sometimes if a person comes to you with eczema, there is vat and kapha dushti as well, typically. If you see something like a histamine intolerance, which I see quite a bit in my practice, there is a pitta dominant nature of that. So it's not like a cookie cutter thing. You have to get into the details and start analyzing every individual. You have to analyze their symptoms that are associated besides the food allergies as well, right? And it takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months after you start healing their digestion for them to be able to start adding the foods back in.
Hmm.
My approach is you always need to be able to add the foods back in. It's fine if a person is turning vegan and ready to give up dairy, but for others there are going to be incidences where you are invited to a party, or you are basically living your life. So you will at some point, if you're traveling, there could be other challenges. So you have to balance your body and strengthen it in a way that it should be able to digest foods, no matter what it is. And the example again I give here is, if we all eat poison, we all die, because that's the nature of poison. But food is not supposed to kill us, right? And
Mhm.
that's sadly what's happening today. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. Om has a comment and a question for you too.
Yeah.
Om, do you want to ask a question?
Yes, I have one comment and one question. So regarding the lab works,
Yeah.
what we are doing here is we have a contract with a small lab,
Okay.
and we direct the yogis to that lab. If somebody doesn't have medical insurance, we will ask them to go on our website and connect with that lab. And
Okay.
lab will in turn ask us, do you authorize us to do CMP, CBC, or maybe gluten sensitivity test?
Yeah.
And then, so if patient is willing to pay from their own pocket, it could be very economical. And then we are getting the test result directly to us.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. That's one possibility to do. The second is, of course, through the insurance, then the patient has to go to, Rogi has to go to the doctor and request for this result.
Yeah.
Now, coming back to the food sensitivity, when thank you for confirming that integrative approach is so helpful. For example, a case of IBT or ulcerative colitis,
Yeah.
as little as the chemical in pasta can be a food sensitivity,
Yeah.
and which one of the yogis said, I'm buying pasta from a company who's making for last 60 years. I said, that's not a question of eating the authentic pasta, but it's a question of getting the chemically made. Why can't we eat regular food? So it's very helpful to know. And same is with the obesity. Person will say that I have lost my midriff, uh, but her CMP profile is showing she's still high in triglyceride
Yeah.
and still high in cholesterol, or maybe the HDL is very low. So I think this is very helpful to see the lab report, and I've been looking at it. It's very helpful. Number one,
Yeah.
this is a comment. So number two, my question is, you mentioned about the gut. Most of the patients are coming with gut disorders. I am more interested to. I'm just in AWC, very just starting my Ayurvedic life. Uh, if I want to focus on the mental counseling
Yeah.
in the Ayurvedic way, what do I do? Because 70-80% of the patients I'm getting recently, the BPDs, bipolar disorders,
Yeah.
trauma, everything. So
Yeah.
if you can just guide me, or maybe I can touch base with you directly, then how to do some specialization as you did in holistic nutrition
Yeah.
or the kinesiology. So any sub line you can suggest to me?
Yeah. See, the comment, like, that's really good, so I'll address first with the comment, right? That, see, you are based in the US, I'm based in Canada, so rules will change everywhere. And that's why I say, you have to look at your lab, or you have to check with your state, your laws. Now here in Canada, Ayurveda is non-regulated, right? Especially Ontario, we have regulated practitioners, we have non-regulated practitioners. There are so many things you cannot do as a non-regulated practitioner. So I cannot order lab test for anyone unless I ask them to do it through their family doctor, which is always my approach, right? So that's always, and you have to be open to working with other practitioners. So that's the number one thing we always have to learn, that it's not just about us, like taking the ego out, right? Always looking, like, making the model always patient centric, right? So for me, if I need lab tests, like maybe a thyroid or salivary hormones, I can test, but any blood related test has to go through their doctor or via a naturopath, and I work with both. So that's the one comment, so definitely it's a great way. And you have to see, like with the test, that gives you the objective parameters and you really understand what's happening, because people talk about weight loss, but then cholesterol is high, triglyceride is high, so the form has changed, right? And it's getting a lot more internal, so you have to check for that. Second one, when it comes to counseling, again in Canada, counseling is regulated. You have to be a social worker, or you have to be a trained psychologist or a psychiatrist, to be able to offer certain services. What I do is, because I also see a lot of trauma in my practice, when people come to you with deep seated digestive issues, when people pay you out of their pocket, which is what happens in Canada. I don't have a lot of people out of insurances paying me, because Ayurveda is never covered via their insurance in Canada. Nutrition for some is covered. So that's kind of the financial aspect of it. But they come to you because there are always some unresolved issues, and they are also unresolved issues in the mind that are translating on the body and not letting them heal, right? So if you want to focus your practice, you will need additional training. Again, look at the state, where you're residing. If there are other professional courses that you can take for counseling, you can definitely go for that. With my clients whom I'm very comfortable, who I've been seeing for a long time, they will open up, they will talk about their trauma. One simple thing I tell them to do is called morning pages, right? Because sometimes the trauma is so deep that people are not comfortable sharing, what happened to them, that still sits with them, but they are not comfortable sharing. They will share it with you because you're a practitioner, but sometimes even that gets very awkward getting into the details of it. So morning pages is a very simple thing. I found it in a book of creativity. You wake up every morning, you dump everything on your brain, 3 pages. You can just write whatever comes to your mind, tear and throw it away. There is no discussion about these pages. You're not talking to your practitioner, you're not talking to your family, you're not talking to anybody, your friends, about what you write. You're just writing every single morning. Do it for 30 days at least, and you can do it yourself as well. I've tried this, when I was going through some stressful times, and it really helps you gain a lot of clarity, because you release that mental clutter, what's bogging you down. And with clients having trauma, sometimes it's not easy for us to actively ask them to focus on the trauma and release it or let it go, which is what is very popular now. If you look at the healing spiritual world, there's a lot of not so great practices going on as well. And sometimes people push, their clients to share trauma, what happened, but it is the client's right to share with you or not. That is their choice. Sometimes if I ask them for a history of trauma, I tell them, if you're not comfortable, I don't want you to go into the details, but this is something you can do at your own place and time. And if you need further help, these are my referrals, right? So I also have a chain of referrals that I can send them to. Certain things that EMDR, so eye movement rapid desensitization, I don't know if you've heard about it, works fantastic for a lot of chronic trauma. And you have to be either a social worker or a psychotherapist here to be trained in it, but I would just make that referral. So the one thing is, stick to your expertise is what I believe, so I'm okay with making referrals as well. um, if a team supports a client, if somebody is trained to help them psychotherapically or psychologically, I will just kind of refer them. So that is my thing, but feel free to connect with me and we can discuss more, if you have questions. So I hope that helps.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So
Any other
let's take,
questions?
maybe let's
Absolutely.
take one more question here, Michelle,
can-
about the herbs, if you can.
Yeah. What is your approach to herbs? Do you like to use single herbs, herb blends, or classical formulations? And what are some of your go-to herbs for dealing with trauma and mind?
Okay. So one of my biggest approaches is always single herbs. And that is because when I started, it was really hard for me, to get all the herbs from India. Again, with Canada, there are challenges when it comes. It's not as open a market as US is, so everything has to go through Health Canada. We need NPN numbers. One of the things I use is a lot of single herbs, and even something as simple as my go-to herb is always going to be ginger, or even either the dry form or the wet form depending on the client. But ginger is the best digestive anti-inflammatory you can find. Sometimes black pepper in trikatu can be too spicy for certain people, right? So even trikatu as a combination is fantastic for any kind of ama, but it might be stronger for certain people if they are pitta dominant, which is quite a lot of what the clients that I see. So single herbs, ginger typically is one of my favorites for ama. The second thing I use a lot in my digestive practice is yashti madhu, right? So when you look at any kind of irritation in the digestive tract, when you look at any kind of irritation, that's not getting healed, acidity or inflammation, when you look at histamine intolerance, when you look at people come to you with leaky gut, all those issues, something as simple as yashti madhu, you can change the anupanas of the herb, right? So anupana is the vehicle. So if you give yashti with ghee, right, that's going to be more soothing in nature. You can give it with hot water and it's going to be absorbed better. So you can change the timing, you can change the dosage, you can change the anupan, and you can make it work. Now, when it comes to yashti, another simple thing is, you can get DGL tablets anywhere, deglycerinated licorice. But if you're looking at fatigue, so if you're looking at adrenal imbalance, the DGL is not going to work, right? So you have to use the whole yashti madhu. So again, the answer is single herbs, not classical formulations as and when needed. If I deal with clients having issues with fertility, I will use classical formulations. If it's a really chronic condition, if the client is Indian and they know the background of the formulations 100%, I will use it. But sometimes I go for simple herbs. Guduchi is another one of my favorite. Anything autoimmune, most times guduchi works fantastically, even as a single herb. Then you can add it in combinations. You can use so many different combinations. There are references for those dhatu pachak yogas. You can check them out later on as well. Yeah, for sure. And then I think we have another question. Okay, so the food freedom formula. Okay, that's the course, highlights of the course. So is it okay if I talk about it?
We can,
I mean,
so
do
we have about 20 minutes left. I was thinking we can take a few more, you and I can have a little bit of a conversation, and then maybe in the end we can take some more questions. If
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
okay.
yeah, sure,
Okay,
sure.
thank you. All right, so maybe now moving on a little bit to the next section of the conversation, which is like understanding maybe how you use Ayurveda in your own life to stay in balance, right?
Okay.
There's a lot you're practicing. There's a lot of work you're doing in terms of working with students, working with patients, like there's, and you have a busy life, right? Everybody today has a busy life. What are some things you incorporate in your day-to-day routine that help you stay in balance, and maybe can also then potentially be used by yogis or other students or practitioners?
Yeah. So one thing that I really require is some kind of movement, right? So with me, because I have a very sedentary lifestyle, because of the work that I do regularly, walking or yoga is extremely important. I will try to go for a walk every single evening. And the one thing is I like to be in nature, so kind of you have to like disconnect from everything to connect within, right? So if you see me 24 hours on social media, sometimes on the weekends, it's not me. I have delegated it to somebody else.
Right.
On the weekends, I typically switch off from social media. After my Saturday interview, I'll just switch off and take time to myself. Meditation is another crucial thing. I every single morning when I wake up, I have to meditate. um, 5 minutes, close your eyes, really grounding yourself is important. And food is something else, like food I think is non-negotiable, because it is going to satiate you. It's going to literally create every part of your body. So eating as fresh as you can, as clean as you can. I love cooking. I'm a really good cook too. So that's one of the things. The other things I'm recently trying to incorporate Ayurveda is that's Brahmi.
Mm.
So I have lots of herbs around me, that I'm trying to grow. I love gardening. So for spring, like this is my new hobby, which is also Ayurvedic. This is ashwagandha.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, so I have ashwagandha, manduk parani, some of, there's vekhand or vacha at the back. So this is a few things that I will be growing them outdoors now, but I will bring them indoors as soon as I'm in the Canadian cold weather. So right now we have nice and sunny weather, so they'll all go out in a day or two. But in the winters, they will all come back in. I also have turmeric that I grow, and I grow indoors. So my home is almost sometimes taken over by plants.
That's amazing. We will be sure to call you back when we have our next session about gardening and growing herbs.
And it is fun, like simple things, and there are so many basic things that you can do. Start with like tomatoes or peppers if you haven't started. Grow in containers. I can talk on this for like I don't know how many hours. Yeah.
That's awesome. Very nice.
Yeah.
And like in terms of like with yogis, for example, right, you work with digestive issues and stuff. So are there things that you found, like small tips or things that people can do like in their own home that can be easily applied on a day-to-day basis for them to get started with just maybe improving their digestion or
So the simplest thing that I tell everyone is always to switch off when they're eating, right? And that's another practice that I do. So 12 to 12:30 in my clinic, you'll never find me anywhere besides, my lunchroom, like in my office, closing the door, enjoying my meal. And it's the same thing you can tell your clients to do, because it's important to establish the gut, brain connection, right? And if your brain is not signaling you, right, that okay, now you're eating, it's not going to secrete those enzymes, right? And
right.
the one thing is Ayurveda is a very practical science. It's not a philosophical science. The it's not about being a stereotype or creating stereotypes or chanting or being a vegetarian, being a vegan. Like Ayurveda, I think, is open to everyone. You have to let them start where they are with three simple things. So that's the secret of my practice. Three things what they can do on a consistent basis as a practice. So if you want them to just switch off and focus on the food, that's the number one thing they can do. You can ask them to stop snacking. That will save a lot of their digestive energy and really ignite their agni. So when they eat, they're going to be super hungry. And then if you find foods that are not working well for them, so you can start taking one thing out. So that's when they start noticing the difference. So simple but practical tips. It always has to be practical. And another thing I would like to tell people is focus on what you are and how you can help your clients. Every time I see somebody talk about Ayurveda, we start at the 5,000 euro Ayurvedic science, and I love Ayurveda. Like it's in my like everything. It's my passion, mission, everything. But it's not serving somebody a purpose to know that it's a 5,000-year-old science. It serves them a purpose to understand how it's helping them.
Right.
Are you going to help them balance their hormones? Are you going to help them with their digestion? What are the benefits they will get? And if you lead with benefits, then you will have people signing up with you. A lot of the times, I teach a lot of practitioners how to practice as well. I do one-on-one coachings with practitioners as well. So what is the biggest challenge I see with practitioners is, you're always talking about Ayurveda on your website, but there's nothing about what you do. So then why should somebody pick you from the 10 others who are practicing Ayurveda and have the exact same websites, right? So you have to bring your own flavor. You have to trust yourself. You have to really connect with your journey, and see how you've shifted your own health, and that's how you can help your clients with their health. So that is kind of the key, you know. And you have to be comfortable talking about it. Like, I'm 100% comfortable talking about the results I have for my clients because I've had those, you know. Or if I don't talk about it, no one is going to find out. And if I don't grow, Ayurveda in this country might not grow without me. Like, I'm not being egoistical, but each practitioner has their role to play, each doctor has their role to play. And when everybody grows is when the growth of Ayurveda happens, right? So that's like one of the messages. So keep it simple,
Yeah.
trust yourself, and, you know, really like let your work shine when you're looking at clients.
That is, I mean, I think that's the essence that you've really captured so well, right? That if the practitioners are growing, then Ayurveda will also grow. Like there is, and that's really why we created the community, because, you know, when I came in, I didn't really know anybody, and I was seeing a lot of other students around me who were in that same boat.
Yeah.
And we thought that as you get the community together, the practitioners will get better because they'll help each other, and that will in turn benefit people, yogis. So you said that so well.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and see, even if you are an AWC or an AP, or, you know, it doesn't matter according to me, you know, as long as you stick to what you know, be comfortable with the referring, but don't feel that, oh, I've just done this, you know. It's the same in the yoga world. I have so many of my yoga friends who are practicing for 20 years, but she's like, oh, I'm just a 200 hour, and the numbers don't matter, you know. See, end of the day, the client goes happy, they are relieved of what they've been struggling, right? And Ayurveda is also a spiritual science. It's also a very karmic thing that we're doing. We're helping people. I'm not saying that I'm healing a person, but I'm helping them heal, right? So it is our duty, but also you have to focus on your thing.
Right.
So that's, yeah, so no matter where you are, there's always somebody that has no idea, you know, you're one step ahead of them,
Yeah,
and that is exactly what you can teach them.
got it. So I guess on this note of like the practitioners and improving practitioners, do you work with students? Do you mentor students?
I do business coaching, mentoring, some like one-on-one. Sometimes it's hard for me to do it because of the time, you know, things, but business wise, so I can kind of sit with you. I do get paid for it because it's my time. I've spent
Sure.
a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah.
time.
No, these
Yeah.
may be paid
Yeah.
services, but there are many students who are actually actively looking for mentors, and
Yeah.
they are open to doing paid consultations. So I was curious how you
Yeah.
work with students.
So I had a program that I launched last year. It's called Align, Execute, and Profit. And again, you know, if you look at the names, they sound catchy because that's the way they are supposed to be, you know. Marketing is something you have to also learn. It is something I was very uncomfortable with when I started my practice, but I went through business coaches. I still work with a coach. So you have to work with someone to learn that aspect, you know, because you're a business here. You have to survive, you have to thrive, and only then can you carry out your mission, right? So I have a course that has all the templates about, you know, how to set up your practice, how to get rid of the imposter syndrome. I can share the information with you.
Yeah, actually, if
You
you
want
could
to share?
share with me, I can post it in the group. I can also send it as a follow-up to the attendees over
Yeah,
email.
so it's not a live course anymore because it's, you know, I did it live, it's all recorded, but there are different modules, you know, how to set up your practice. And this is about understanding you as a practitioner, you know. It's not about teaching you Ayurveda. I think you already have the skills through your school. But this is all about the secrets that I learned from my own practice. So I'll definitely, you know, share that with you. And if you're interested, just, you know, message me. If you're interested in one-on-one business coaching, just message me, and I can set up a time and we can discuss more, and then we can discuss how I can help
And
you.
is it more geared towards practicing in Canada, or do you think even students in US would benefit from it?
It is, I pretty much charge everything in US dollars. You know, see, practice principles are universal, right? This is about getting you confident as a practitioner.
Okay.
This is about teaching you the back end systems as a practitioner.
Not about like the business registration, insurance, scope of practice,
No,
not
that
that kind
is,
of stuff.
no, the state insurance or the legalities, that is your part, but this is more about like your mindset work, right? So The first one example is, I just have it open in front of me. It's like you understand your foundation, you understand the branding basics, you understand what's your message about, right? You understand your challenges, your limiting beliefs, you understand barriers to communication. As I mentioned, if you talk about Ayurveda but don't talk about yourself, why should somebody sign up with you?
Right.
Right, when there are so many other practitioners they can sign up with. And sometimes if you talk about doshas, which is a foreign concept to a person, you are going to lose them. So you have to start where the client is. So these are things that I teach. I talk about sales as well. Sales in the spiritual world, whether it's Ayurvedic, whether it's yoga, is considered very icky, right? But if you don't make money, you're not going to move ahead, in your
How will you
business.
sustain your business and your
Yeah,
practice?
so those are some basics that I teach. And then I also talk about social media, because that's where, I do a lot with social media and organic marketing. And that's what I can talk about as well. Yeah.
But do you ever have you considered offering, like, group mentorship where, you people bring you their cases, or you're helping them sort of, transition more into working with yogis? And a lot of times students, don't have that enough clinical exposure, and it helps to have guidance from a seasoned Vaidya, right?
Yeah. So I have been approached for that, again, as I said, with the time constraints and all, we have to figure it out.
Mm.
Right now in Canada, I will be like helping out one of my, like, she's a good friend. I've known her for a few years, so I'm okay with doing that for her. Sometimes it's challenging with the mentoring, because in the past I've been approached as well, and I'm being very blunt that sometimes people just want to know that what you give, right? They don't want to think about
Hmm.
the yukti behind it, but
Just want the answers.
you just want the answers. Like, using Arjuna for every heart condition is not the answer. You could do a lot wrong, especially if it's angina, or if there's a lot of vata involved. You can't use that kashayatmak drugs. So
Right.
um, with Ayurvedic courses, I kind of teach a few other courses as well. Like the food freedom, somebody has the question. So it's more about certain psychology of the food and eating right, So along with Ayurveda, there are other principles as well that I incorporate. One-on-one mentoring, I have one right now that I'm considering and working with, but I haven't really opened myself to that just because of time constraints.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Got it.
Live business coach. The coaching is live. The course, I don't know if I will do it in the future, honestly, because I'm repeating the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's all recorded, it's all there. You can definitely go for it. One-on-one sessions are always live, because we sit down with you and figure out what's the best for you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there is a part of the course which is maybe there is still a Q&A live that can happen with you.
Yeah. And see, with any of my courses, you can ask me the questions, later on. So I'm pretty approachable. I'm always like somewhere, via emails or something. You can find me. You can definitely message me about any questions that you have. But if you want to focus on your specific business, so one-on-one works better than group coaching, because then in that 1 hour we can map everything out, rather than giving like half the attention to 5 people, right?
Got
So
it.
yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. We have just a few more minutes left. So, Michelle, are there any other questions that we can cover?
No, not really. Nothing else coming in at this time.
So, I guess there was a question about your food freedom formula course. If you would like to share more about that.
Yeah, so that's one of my courses. Again, it's recorded, it's not live anymore. It was a live course, but it's more about emotional eating and eating behaviors as well. So this is all my own study about nutritional psychology. And sometimes, with people who are yo-yo dieters, people who are not eating well because of emotional issues, like everybody in this world knows what to eat, maybe not from an Ayurvedic perspective, but at least the health perspective. Information is easily accessible, but yet some people really struggle with it because of emotional issues.
Right.
So here we are helping them identify, hunger versus emotional hunger, food addiction, the psychology behind it. Then there are 3 modules where I talk about dosha and really help them understand. And then nutritional goal setting, different emotions, how to kind of release those emotions, how to reprogram your brain. And right now that's the program on kind of a special early bird pricing. And that also comes with a certification. So as a practitioner, you will get a certification. You also get 2 special sessions with me, those one-on-one sessions. And you also get 2 of my videos. One is called Roadmap to Client Success. One is called Supercharge Your Online Business. So I can just share this. Do you want me to share it here or send you separately?
If you would like to share a link here in the chat, that'll be great.
Yeah, so this is the Food Freedom Formula program. And then the Align Execute, I'll have to look for the link.
Okay. Sure, I'm sure people can also find it on your website.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. That's great. Yeah. All right. Any other last questions before we close? Anybody? We just have 1 more minute left.
Okay, I think I found both. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate your time today. Again, we as a community, like this is such an amazing opportunity to learn from your experience and grow ourselves, our practice. So really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming, Dr. Manjiri, and also everybody else. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will see you at the end of the month for community hours. On the last Friday of every month, we have our community hours session. And then next month, we'll be back with the next episode. So look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Shruti, for bringing everybody together. Thank you so much.
And one last thing before I leave, I just want to say that please apply something of what you've learned. We all look for information, we get that information, but sometimes we don't apply it, right? So if there was anything that you found useful from today's talk, just stick it on your computer or stick it wherever your desk is, and please start applying things, because once you start applying things, only then you'll start seeing the difference in your practice, right? Yeah. So
Right.
please do that.
That's a great
Yeah.
point.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Keeping it real. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Dr. Manjiri. Definitely, we will add you to our CTA group. So, and then we would like you to be a part of our team, and no force, like whenever you have time, you can, just ping or give your suggestions. But we would like you to join our WhatsApp group also.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, if there's no pressure, I don't mind.
No pressure.
No pressure at all.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Shruti.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Bindu. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you so much, Ruchi. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.